We're going to talk now about the DOE asking Congress for $200 million for its cybersecurity budget following the Colonial Pipeline attack that we've weathered in recent weeks. It's no surprise that the DOE and others are, really taking cybersecurity much more seriously, especially as it relates to infrastructure. And, we've been talking about cybersecurity threats to infrastructure for a very long time and warning that, and not just us, any experts in the space warning that this is a reality. This is going to happen. This is happening. But I think that Colonial Pipeline was really kind of a wake up call, as was the attack on the beef processing plant, I think.
Yeah.
So in any event, the DOE has asked Congress for $201 million in its 2022 budget, specifically to address vulnerabilities in the wake of, what is easily described as a relentless increase in cyber attacks.
Mhm.
This request is up from $157 million in 2021, and it's intended to help fill gaps in tech infrastructure and the supply chain. Beef processing plant, Colonial Pipeline,
Yeah.
and the DOE also needs to upgrade software, hire additional cybersecurity staffers, and update policies and standards. In her testimony about the request, Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm told the Senate Arms Committee on Thursday that part of the problem that they're dealing with is the inability of the government to have insight into what's happening in the private sector. And, that
Right.
really does make perfect sense because, the reality of it is private sector, again, Colonial Pipeline, for example, or, there was a wastewater treatment plant in Florida, I think, that suffered a
Mhm.
cybersecurity attack recently. So these private organizations um, exist and have problems, but the government there's no collaboration, there's no communication. The government has no insight into what's happening, what practices and procedures are happening, or anything else. And so that's really, part of, I think, the
Yeah.
focus on updating policies and standards and just taking a look at, this is how we've been doing it, but this is not working. And this doesn't necessarily mean, to my interpretation, this doesn't mean that the government's looking to oversee public companies.
Mhm.
But there has to be some way to connect and collaborate what's going on in the private sector to what's going on in the government sector and make sure that we're all working together.
Right.
And, and one final note here is that the Biden administration is asking Congress for 9.8 billion for federal cybersecurity in 2021, 2022. That's about a 15% increase over last year. And not to be outdone, the Pentagon is requesting 10.4 billion in 2022 for its cybersecurity budget. So I think it's safe to say that cybersecurity is on everybody's minds.
Yeah, it is, and it should be.
Yeah.
What I think is interesting about this is not everybody recognizes that the Department of Energy, as you mentioned, where's the testimony? Armed Services. That's because the Department of Energy controls the nuclear stockpile of weapons in the United
Right.
States. A very important thing that we would like to keep secure, and something that does rely on a massive extended supply chain.
Yeah.
But I think if you look at that budget, I kind of saw that and I said, I'm not sure that's even enough. Which is
Right.
sort of a sad testimony on where we are today. But I do think that they're going in the right direction, and I'm hoping that there's at least part of this that gets carved out into some behavioral management. Because right now we're still just throwing technology at the system. They're talking about what can we do to improve the tech cyber defenses that we have. But in reality, there's a lot of behaviors that we've been doing for years. Because
Right.
why? In the early days, digital tech wasn't networked, it wasn't accessible. It was still air gapped off from everything else. Today, it's not. Everything is connected, and we need to rethink, not just the way we're securing our systems, but the way we implement our systems in general. Asking a very big question at times: if there is a risk of this being compromised, do we even want to do it this way? And it may be that the alternatives are a little bit more painful, a little bit more costly, perhaps. But if they prevent or add an element of risk mitigation and protection to a system that's otherwise easily attacked, we need to start thinking about that now before
Right.
it's much too late.